Itachi Uchiha versus Obito Uchiha. Who wins between these two powerful Uchihas and Akatsuki members if they were to face off in a full-scale battle? Well, that's the battle I have for y'all today. Like, share, and subscribe. As always, comment down below on any thoughts you have about this video. Now, before getting right into it, let me just state I'm going to be using the two versions of these two characters whilst they were in the Akatsuki, more or less healthy and alive Itachi versus an orange mask Obito. Now, let's begin with speed. See, when it comes to speed, I think they are more or less relative, with the slight advantage going to Obito. I think Obito is closer to KCM2 Naruto levels of speed and power, especially since that's the level of speed and power Minato believed Naruto would need to actually best Obito, whilst Itachi has simply been implied to be just above KCM1 Naruto levels of speed, since he can't keep up with KCM1 Naruto levels of speed in his Edo form, and then Edo bodies are nerfed, so he should be faster in his healthy and alive state. So it's quite possible that they are more or less relative, with them just both being above KCM1 Naruto levels of speed, and Obito might not be exactly at KCM2 Naruto levels of speed, but it's closer than Itachi in my opinion. So I think they're more or less relative, but with a slight advantage going to Obito. I think in terms of durability, kind of the same thing applies. Obito has a lot more durability feats than Itachi, and I mean, he could take a Rasengan from a Hokage Minato at the age of 14, but then when it comes to their combat skill, Itachi far outscales Obito. Obito is obviously skilled. He was trained in Leaf, trained by Madara, fought a few times after that, but Itachi was trained for a lot longer period in the Leaf. He was a prodigy who took part in a lot of missions in and outside of the Anbu. He's smarter than Obito in and out of battle. He's a much better fighter than Obito. But then you obviously have to start talking about all the ninjutsu and genjutsu and all the jutsus in general. And I'll be completely honest, I think Itachi has a far larger arsenal than Obito. I mean, Obito has his fire style, his shurikens, his Izanagi, which is quite useful. He has his genjutsu, able to control a perfect Jinchuriki and a tail beast whilst fighting Minato. And obviously he has his Kamui, which is probably his best asset. But Itachi has his water style, his fire style, Izanami, which directly contrasts Izanagi. He has the most powerful genjutsu, that being Tsukuyomi, and he also has Ephemeral, which is going to probably cause a bit of problem for Obito and any other character in general. He has a Matarasu, which is like the most powerful physical attack. He has a Susanoo with the Yarma Mirror, which negates majority of any attacks that comes his way. And then he also has the Maritama, the Tosuka Blade, which can steal anyone away. Itachi's arsenal is just far larger than Obito's arsenal, and I don't think like that's much of a stretch to say. And obviously he kind of wins in that aspect. But the thing is, Itachi can negate many of Obito's attacks with the Susanoo and many of the abilities he has in general, but many of the attacks that he might direct at Obito would probably not be able to land most of the time because of Obito possessing Kamui, which does make the battle a very complicating and tricky battle to fully determine who actually wins in. Now, who do I actually believe wins this battle? Well, I'll be completely honest. I think it is a really tricky and complicating battle, and for the most part, it could go either side. Like, it's a 5 or 10 chance either side could win 50-50, but there is a slight part of me who would prefer to lean towards Itachi actually winning the battle, and I know many people might not actually agree with that, but I personally believe Itachi does have the capabilities of defeating Obito. And I'm not saying that just because Obito himself has stated that Itachi has the capabilities of defeating him, and by the way, that is a big factor to consider. Obito himself did believe Itachi could beat him, and that might not just be because of Itachi's insane arsenal, but also be because of Itachi's intellect, which has always been shown to be really useful to him in battle. I mean, you saw it against Nagato, where he slowed down the battle to properly analyze Nagato's abilities and then find a way to actually better beat him. So Obito was literally afraid of him, but that's not the only reason why I believe Itachi can beat Obito. I think there are multiple different strategies Itachi can put in place that would be able to actually give him openings in a battle against Obito and give him the capabilities of actually winning it. For instance, he could use water clones. We've seen him do this before, and we know that Obito has struggled to fight against many characters at the same time. He struggles to fight against numbers. Like, we saw him fighting against Naruto, B, Kakashi, and Guy, and he was struggling to land proper hits on them because there was more of them than he, which obviously does show that he struggles against numbers. But the thing they lacked is something that Itachi has. They lacked long-range one-shot winning attacks, and Itachi actually has a long-range one-shot winning attack, that being Amaterasu. And if he is able to actually trick Obito into believing that he's got the right Itachi and making him tangible, then he might just put Amaterasu into place and catch Obito then and there. And yes, Obito can use Izanagi, but then Itachi can also use Izanami against Obito, which immediately means that Itachi kind of wins the battle at that point because of Izanami being a direct contrast to Izanagi. And in general, if Obito becomes tangible and Itachi just happens to get a hold of him, then Itachi can use Izanami and catch Obito. So I think there are multiple situations where Itachi can get openings against Obito whilst using clones, and in those openings he'd probably be able to actually best Obito. And besides for that, if Obito actually accidentally sucks a clone of Itachi into the Kamui dimension, he's at an even greater disadvantage, since now there's an Itachi in the Kamui dimension and in the real world, which means he can just transport himself between the two dimensions whilst fighting them and has to deal with either one of them first, and that would be a massive problem for Obito. He'd really struggle to do that because Itachi is not just a better fighter than he is, but he also still has a much larger arsenal and perhaps still the availability of using Amaterasu and Izanami and the Tosca Blade and all the other attacks he has. And if he puts many of these attacks into place, it might cause a massive problem for Obito and once again lead to him losing the battle. You see, there are many ways that Itachi can actually best Obito. The thing is, Obito's way of defeating Itachi is a lot simpler. You see, Itachi has to do a couple things before actually defeating Obito. He has to put a couple strategies into place. But I do believe Itachi can 100% put these strategies into place because of his intellect and how we've seen him fight in previous battles. But you cannot deny the fact that Obito still has an easier way of just killing Itachi, and that's getting close to him and sucking him into Kamui and TGs. But the thing is, when you get to that, you have to start talking about if Itachi would actually allow Obito or be able to prevent Obito from sucking him into Kamui. And I do believe there is a slight chance that he might actually be able to do so. See, if Itachi knows of Obito's abilities already, like if you take him from the moment he died, he probably did know of Obito's abilities, and if that is the case, he's probably going to keep a distance from Obito for majority of the battle, and that will actually work in his favor because he's a long range and close range fighter, and all of Obito's long range attacks will probably not work against Itachi because of the Susanoo, if the Susanoo is put in place, or any other abilities that Itachi has in his arsenal, which will probably allow him to negate many of Obito's long range attacks. But then the Kamui is a close range attack, and Itachi can keep a distance from Obito for majority of the battle, which would obviously allow him a massive advantage. And in that situation, if he already knows of Obito's abilities, and then he can put all the strategies I've already mentioned he could put in place, that being clones and finding openings against Obito, and he'd probably win the battle a lot easier if he already knows of Obito's abilities. I mean, he is a smart character. He uses his intellect many times in battle. But if he doesn't and Obito is able to close the gap against him, first of all, I don't think Itachi will just attack Obito the moment Obito tries closing the gap against him. See, if Obito teleports behind Itachi, I think Itachi is more likely going to try and get distance from Obito. I think that's the kind of fighter he is, based on what we saw when he fought Nagato and he tried slowing down the fight and analyzing it properly. I think if Obito consistently and continuously tries to close the distance and the gap between himself and Itachi will notice this and try to keep a distance from him. But if Obito is able to actually close the gap and actually somehow get a hold of Itachi, then Itachi can use Ephemeral, Itachi can use Tsukuyomi. Those two genjutsus might cause a bit of a problem for Obito and kind of give Itachi an opening to perhaps get away, use a substitution jutsu or something like that. Or alternatively, he could pull out the Susanoo, which would release a large burst of power which could push Obito away. And since Obito can't really be tangible inside of Itachi's Susanoo, and Obito has to be tangible to actually suck someone into the Kamui dimension, it kind of gives Itachi yet another opening in the battle. And alternatively, he could use Amaterasu and direct it away from Obito's eye, or he could simply use Izanami, immediately catching Obito and actually defeating him then and there. You see, Itachi has ways to avoid being sucked into Kamui, in my opinion, but can he react to it? Yes, he can. Minato could react to being sucked into Kamui, and I understand that Minato is faster than Itachi, but I don't think the speed difference between that Hokage Minato was nearly sucked into Kamui and healthy and alive Itachi is that great. But fine, you could still say that there's a difference between them in terms of speed, but then Itachi still is an insanely fast character relative to Obito's levels of speed, and we've seen a lot of characters be able to simply react to being sucked into Kamui, like even Konan. I mean, she was a bit far, but still she was able to simply react to being sucked into Kamui. So I don't think it's much of a stretch to say that Itachi could simply react to it. And if that is the case, he can put all the different things I've already stated he could put into place. Like he could use the substitution jutsu, genjutsu, Amaterasu, Susanoo, and so on and so forth. So that would mean that Itachi does have the capabilities of preventing himself from being sucked into Kamui. And if he's able to do that just once, he more or less already understands the abilities of Obito, and he can put all the earlier strategies into place, like using clones and getting openings in the battle to actually best Obito. And all of these things are things we've actually seen work against Obito. We've seen Obito struggle to fight against numbers. We've seen Obito be caught in the Kamui dimension. We've seen people react to being sucked into Kamui. Itachi has a larger arsenal than majority of the characters Obito has fought. He's relative to Obito's speed. He has decent amount of chakra and stamina, and he's healthy and alive state. He can definitely react to being sucked into Kamui. He has an insane arsenal which can allow him a lot of one-shot wins attacks against Obito. I think Itachi definitely has the capabilities of winning this battle. But I'm not saying Obito doesn't have a chance as well. He does definitely have a chance, especially since his way is a lot easier. But I would lean towards Itachi winning the battle. Now, I'm sure many people are going to have a lot of comments and thoughts about this. I know y'all will. And obviously, I'd love to see them. Leave them down below. Regardless of them being good or bad, just leave them down below. This is MC Info. It's another MC Clash. I'm out.